Are you curious to learn about the growth opportunities and sustainability highlights in alternative investments? Come join us in hearing from investment experts across the field, ranging from private equity to forestry, real estate, and beyond. Stay tuned. In this episode, we will find out what the market outlook is for forestry investments now and in the future. Together with me, I have Evli's own forestry expert, Roger Naylor. Roger has spent his 20-year career exclusively in forestry investing, previously at an international forestry investment advisor and as chief operating officer at a UK forestry fund manager. Currently, he is the portfolio manager at Evli's Impact Forest Fund. So warmly welcome, Roger.
Thank you very much, Petra.
Digging right into the topic of forestry investing. So how does investing in forestry work in practice?
Well, forestry is an asset class that most people are not very familiar with, but actually the investment principle is very simple. We invest in commercial working forests with trees growing on them, and as those trees grow, investors should benefit from capital appreciation from the land and the timber, and from income from harvesting the trees and selling the timber. So traditionally, we supplied markets in the construction industry, but really the world is facing a shortage of wood as timber becomes the preferred material of choice in construction, replacing steel and concrete, and plastics in the packaging industry. Yeah. So around 65% of the return is from the biological growth of the trees, and then timber price and land price appreciation makes up the remainder.
Yeah. And as a follow-up question, who are the investors and what returns have they received?
So pension funds, family offices, high net worth individuals have all been invested in forestry for many decades. The benchmark return in the US, where we focus our investments, has been about 8% over the last 30 years, that's per annum. The housing market over the last 2 years has performed particularly strongly. So in 2021, the return was 9%, and this year, the return has been about 12%. Yeah. So very good risk-adjusted returns to investors.
Good insights. And how has forestry fared in a downturn? And what are the characteristics that make it a defensive asset class?
Well, this is highly relevant to today's inflationary environment. So forestry has been a resilient asset class and well recognized for its capital preservation characteristics. So for example, in the 2008 and 9 financial crisis, when the equity markets fell 40%, we had minimal losses from forestry. And as I said, this year, we've seen about 12% returns. So it's, as in a market downturn, investors tend to return to real assets, and that helps maintain or even increase asset values. There's a very strong correlation between inflation and forestry returns. So in every 10-year period since 1960, forestry has always outperformed inflation. We see wood demand going up as the general health of the economy increases. Yeah. And because it takes a long time to establish forests, there's no new source of supply to undercut prices. Uniquely, forestry managers can curtail or stop their harvesting during a market downturn when prices fall and wait for those prices to recover. In the meantime, the trees are growing, they're increasing in volume and value. And that biological growth is independent of markets.
And forestry is no longer just about timber. So what has changed in the recent years and what makes it a climate solution asset class?
Well, this is the real game changer that has occurred over the last 2 years. So we now have the opportunity to monetize the environmental services of forests. Carbon is the big market, but biodiversity credits are going to come along afterwards, and they're going to be big too. Yeah. So investors can begin to have a more diverse revenue stream away from just timber. And I think in any asset class, we tend to see a step change in value, and that is occurring in forestry right now as those underlying investment assumptions are changing. I think of relevance to Evli's clients as well is that investors are using it to achieve net zero climate goals. So as managers, we can measure the wood volume in a forest, and through protocols such as the greenhouse gas protocol, we can convert that into an equivalent carbon volume. So we can now measure that volume annually, report it to investors, and they can offset their emissions elsewhere in their portfolio.
Yeah.
So really, forestry is the only scalable and low-cost solution right now. So it's difficult to see how investors with a net zero target can achieve that without an allocation to forestry.
Yeah. And thinking of ESG, how can investors ensure that the forests are actually managed sustainably?
Well, the tool we use is really forest certification. So that's an independent third-party review of the management practices. And if they conform to the criteria, then they're offered a forest certification certificate. And at Evli, we recognise two schemes, the Forest Stewardship Council and the Programme for Endorsement for Forest Certification.
Yeah.
In addition to that, we're beginning to see the managers partner with environmental NGOs, seeking to improve conservation outcomes and reporting metrics as well.
So to wrap up, it seems that forestry provides good returns, works as an inflation hedge, and has been seeing rising interest given its carbon potential.
That's right.
So I think this is all for our part today. Thank you so much, Roger, for joining us. However, we will be back soon, next time talking about investing in growth equity. So stay tuned. This is Evli.